Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Lumpia Bytes. So, last time, Mark shared his story about leaving corporate life to build something of his own. And today, we're diving into his latest tech startup, GUIA, an AI powered learning platform built in collaboration with Filipino students, teachers, and parents. So, we'll talk about the problem this technology is solving, how it was built from the ground up, and how AI can help close the education gap ethically and responsibly. So if you're a parent, teacher, a student, or curious about how AI can make learning better, stay tuned. Mark, before we talk about GIA itself, let's start with the problem. What did you see in our education system in the Philippines that made you think something needed to change here?
Sure. And so the story began really with my son, my son Basti, and we're at a point in time. Even my daughter, no, we're at a point in time where we're starting to think about college, what course would they want to take, and so because of that, I started looking at how do kids today actually review for high stakes exam, no, for UPCAT, ASET, and stuff like that. And I don't know if I would call it a maze. And what I saw was that it's still all pretty much brick and mortar. You have all of these review centers lining up Katipunan, and a parent such as myself will shell out anywhere between uh 10,000 pesos to 15,000 pesos to 25,000 pesos just to, you know, enroll their child to a review center. Um, and a child will then go through 6 Saturdays, 4 hours every Saturday, and it's like a factory, right? So, uh, a child will sit in for 4 hours Saturday morning, and then this Saturday they will tackle math. Next Saturday, science, and so on and so forth. It's all a one-way conversation around the same material, just said over and over again. It's also just them tabulating their scores and not really knowing where what their weaknesses are. They knew what their score was, but what particular part of mathematics, for example, are they really weak? So I found it was all, and then the style of preparing a child is what I call a peanut butter spread approach. No matter if you're strong in math or weak in Filipino or the other way around, the review centers all just give them the same lesson. Peanut butter spread. Pare-pareho lang, no? And that's what I guess inspired me to look at, hey, can we come up with uh leveraging the latest in technology, some a platform that could, give, I mean, or augment, nothing against review centers, no, but um possibly another option for a child to be better prepared as they go through the journey of reviewing and preparing for eventually taking a high stakes exam such as the UPCAT, for example. So that's where it started.
Oh, that's really interesting. Interesting to hear that it's all the same thing. Like you mentioned, it looks like it's all the same thing. It's all in the Katipunan area because I remember taking
Mm,
the upcut. Is
mm,
that the upcut? And I wasn't really into because I'm from the south, so I wasn't
yeah.
really very serious about really getting into the Ateneo or UP. And also, I have to go far. The traffic in the Philippines. We talked about that before. And someone from the south going there really far, and just having that few hours of learning in there. Surprising to see that it's still the same problem. So, but after seeing those challenges, I'm curious, how did that idea turn into GIA, right? Tell us about GIA. I'm curious about the name actually. What's GIA? And how did you start building it?
GUIA actually stands for guide in Spanish. So it was something that we conceptualized very early on, that the tool that we were going to create, or the platform that we were going to create, would act like a motherly guide or coach to students. So GIA is really an online platform where a child such as Basti, my son, no, could log in and take mock exams of these high stakes tests such as UPCAT and stuff. They could take a mock exam, and immediately after, leveraging artificial intelligence, GUIA will tell my son not just his total score, but also what are up to 4 levels down, what is your weakness or what areas of mathematics, science, language, reading comprehension, either it's English or Filipino, be able to tell my son or a child, this is what this is where these are the different areas that you're weak. Or and these are of course the different areas that you're strong at, right? And it will also on demand be able to tell the child how you are in terms of time management. Yes, you were able to answer, for example, all of the algebra questions within a certain time frame, but then because you rushed it, their accuracy level was low. The other thing that GIA can do is that based on your results, GIA can also suggest a study plan or topics that you can focus on every day. So it's unique to every child, actually. Every time that you take a test, GIA will look at, say, for example, you've taken 7 mock exams. GIA will look at the last one and then what is your trend. So you won't be surprised that GIA will tell you you've steadily improved tackling algebra questions over the last couple of tests because that's how it analyzes. So it acts really like a guide to a
Mm-hmm.
child. It takes out the guesswork and really gives data driven insight to how a child is performing. As more students use GIA, or let's say for example, the entire senior high school batch of a school takes GIA, we can actually aggregate all of that data and be able to provide real time dashboards, analytics, and even insights to that for that entire cohort on demand to a school and be able to tell the school, here's the proficiency of your students, right? And then um, here are the students who are weak in algebra. You probably need to do algebra remedial classes, or these are the students in terms of how are they tackling not just Filipino in general, but the different sub areas of Filipino, for example. As we built it, we talked to a lot of educators, and the more and more the educators from all of these top private schools and institutions, they contributed a lot in terms of how GEO was designed. On on the other end, we also involved the students very early on in the conceptual and in designing process. My solution architect is a professor, a CS professor, and the director, Jobin Ilagan, actually is also an educator now in Ateneo. And together with them and the students, I can say that it's really has been co-built with
Oh.
both teachers and students. So just to share with you, and one last thing around this question was that when the co-founders are stuck with the design decision, right? The decision to design. Myself, Simon, and Muchi, we all have 1 point, but the Gen Z who are part of the team, they have like I don't know +5 points. So they we actually go to them to make certain decisions on how the design would look like because they're closer to the market, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a long but very summarized history of where how we came to be.
A lot of insights in there. What I loved about what you said in building Gia is you work with people who are actually using it, right? Students, educators. So you really pulled in the right people to build this tool, right? The right stakeholders for this. And that's actually, requirements gathering 101. You have to involve stakeholder people who's using the system, right? So it's really cool. But Mark, how did you turn this, that transition from the idea to execution? Did you find the co-founder first,
Yeah,
or how did that thing happen? Because that's the hardest part for people from the idea, right, to the first step towards this goal of building it, the execution. How did that happen?
finding the right co-founders was was very critical for us. So or for me, because I was the first person there, So when I knew Simon, he we are different. We each have our own strengths and weaknesses, but I always believed in his heart, in his integrity, in his value system. So, and then I knew that, of course, he was in tech, so he's a ex HPer as well. Um, so when I sat down with him, I shared him the idea. He immediately, like, hey, we can do this, we can do that, and stuff like that. I'm interested to join. So I knew that he had a shared passion. And then 2 weeks after, we met in the same place, and he had Rina along, who is an experienced educator and a Pasco creditor. And again, as I shared, she really brought in uh, an insight into the education industry that I had no idea. I had no appreciation at that time, right? The next co-founder was actually Muchi. No? So when we so one of the things I think that we were lacking, I knew that we were lacking since we were going to be a B2C platform, was someone who could help and focus on marketing, which is not my strength, which is not Simon's strength, right? But I knew I had a good relationship with Muchi already, and I knew that she was doing something like that, no. And when we sat down with Muchi in Fridays in BGC, after that conversation, I knew immediately that, you know what, I think it would really be fantastic to have Muchi join us. And I remember asking you, Much, this is what you want to do, and I think you would be a hand to glove fit with us, no. And thankfully, of course, we have been together for the past more than a year, no, on this journey. And then the final co-founder actually was Alfred Sanchez, who is also a very experienced, educator from a top private school here in Metro Manila, who actually had a master's in measurements and assessment. And he brought in a lot of the insights specifically around uh, this important, very important fundamental aspect of designing gear.
I think you mentioned that you kind of recommend to that guy that you've mentioned in the previous episode that instead of taking masters, go to corporate first. Because if you go to corporate, you're gonna meet a lot of people as well. And
Mm,
these are the people that you never know that will be part of your journey, will be your co-founder down the road,
yeah,
right? So that's a really, really good advice. And one thing that stuck with me, I remember my son and I were watching a movie like that. Not sure what movie was this, but it says if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. Something in those lines. And it's really like a lessons in here because as you get your
I like that.
co-founders, right?
Mm,
Because as a solopreneur, for example, you want to start your business like just alone. Yeah, you can go fast. The decisions are really fast. You go
yeah,
alone, right? But if you want to really go farther, then you have to have people with you going into that journey. And that's the co-founder journey too. That's amazing. Um, so what were the toughest challenges, Mark, building GIA? Is it building the product or the technical aspect or the people or the financials? What were the toughest challenges?
yeah. I think
Oh,
I think pretty straight away is the financials aspect to
financials.
that. So we bootstrap Gia.
Mhm.
Um, And to be frank, the time to finally creating the MVP took longer than what I was expecting. But thankfully, here we are. Um, we've started talking to larger groups of people and thankfully, I think because we now have a product with actual users who actually used it, we can we have a firmer ground to stand on when we're trying to talk to larger, angels and venture capitalists
Mhm.
to seek more investment so that we can further accelerate the growth and do the things that we want to do with it.
Yeah. How do you think, Mark, we can elevate that startup culture in the Philippines? I mean, since you're very, you have two startups or tech startups, and it's been a dream of tech professionals in there as well, not just doing corporate, but doing tech startups. Comparing to Silicon Valley, I know
Mm.
comparing it to that, it's a stretch, right? Silicon Valley. But, how can you elevate that tech startup culture in the Philippines? What do you think is the number one? Like, if you're gonna right off the bat, what would be it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, just to quickly comment on, I think Silicon Valley being a stretch. I think yes, it's a stretch, but it's also sort of a guidepost of what the ideal situation could be.
Mhm.
right? And from what I've heard and read and seen, and I hope that someday will become a reality in the Philippines, is that um, because the startup community is already strong, right? The startup community is already strong. There are a lot of generous people out there, but we can't operate in a silo, right? It can't just be a startup community. It has to, I think, for me, um, be a hand-in-hand collaboration, not just with the startup community, but with the academe, with schools, right? And also the government. I still, I still see, especially comparing to what I've seen abroad, right? It's so hard for an SME to start up your business. A lot of these legal uh, loops that you need to jump into. It's not as supportive as I think could be, no,
Mhm.
for a startup. There's a lot of like educational institutions, like for example in Ateneo, like the Ateneo Build program, where entrepreneurship is, especially specifically in IT, is already part of the curriculum. That being said, if we can tighten the support and the community and the engagement between the three pillars, that could really accelerate, the startup scene and support more startups in the country. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. And looking at Gia, I think you have the right foundation, really, right people, the right space to play in, and I know it's going to be exciting. I'll hand it over to Muchi because I know Muchi as an educator, right? She loves teaching, and this is her space as well.
Just to add to what Mark said, yeah, I totally like, here in the US, I'm kind of like swimming in two lakes, getting to see what's in the Philippines and at the same time getting a good view of what's available in the US and how the US is structured. The East Coast system and the West Coast system for startup and entrepreneurship is so strong. Like in the East Coast, you have Boston, you have the universities,
Eh,
you have New York, the financial capital, you have
eh,
DC, the government support. And with all of the conferences that I've been able to attend there, it's always the government asking, how can we support you guys so that you guys can keep innovating? That's that's the mindset. It's not always perfect. I know Americans would say our government is so whatever, right? But
eh,
you have no idea what we're going through in the Philippines. So, whatever, I'm not going to discount or invalidate anyone else's challenges, but I'm telling you, the US system and the US structure, though it's not perfect, it does work. I mean, it does
eh,
work because you see it in the numbers. You see it in producing the most unicorns in the most the most unicorns and the most billionaires the world has ever seen, right? For decades and decades. And you see that also in the West Coast with Stanford and actually the Bay Area universities, Berkeley, Stanford, and all of that with Silicon Valley themselves. It's a huge ecosystem. It's a huge culture that people are interacting with each other. No silos, right? Not like people are sharing ideas with each other. People are helping each other. Sure, there are rivalries left and right, but for the most part, it's productive rivalries. It's not destructive, and for the most part, there's still it's still good people in the world trying to help each other build better things in the world. So I hope that we do get to see that. It is the Philippine startup scene is very exciting. It is booming. It needs so much more support. um there is a brain drain in Manila that a lot of people are, just going out for better opportunities. But hopefully, we still give the Philippines a chance in building this startup ecosystem because there's a lot of geniuses in the Philippines, and hopefully hopefully we get to do that.
And this is why we love to share these kinds of stories because this is going to inspire a lot of people in the Philippines, right?
yeah.
It starts to build that culture. If you don't get it from the government straight away or if any universities that support, people who's going to build it from the ground up will show them that, that this is possible. You can make it happen. And then more people joining it. So this is a good culture setting. It's good.
Mm,
So with that, I'm gonna segue to my next few questions for Mark, which is
mm,
more about AI and parenting. So what I wanted to understand, Mark, AI, children, and education. Whoa, what a battlefield that is, right? You have teachers, you have parents anxious about artificial intelligence in their child's lives. But the first people who actually adopted AI were the teenagers. They were using it before it even hit mainstream media. They were using it to make their essays, they were using it to submit their homework. In fact, ChatGPT's usage went down around 2023, I think, and it was because of summer break. So the kids are obviously using it. The kids are like not even no brainer, they're using it. But the parents and the teachers are a little bit like, what is this? Is this cheating? Is this cheating? Is this not cheating? Or is this like, or do I encourage my child to use this because if they don't use it, they're going to be left behind? So, how do we teach kids, or how do you position AI to parents and teachers right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. My personal take on it is that it's the future, and all of these conversations around AI taking over, you know, jobs, no, and taking over jobs. But I think I try to position it in a sense that technically it's not AI who's going to take away your job. It's people who are more knowledgeable than you, or more knowledgeable than your child on AI, who will take over their jobs. That's basically how I frame it. So I truly believe that um, learning what artificial intelligence is, and are what the value that it can bring, and also what are the limitations it has in terms of like what it can actually do, and more importantly is what is the risk, right, of actually a child using artificial intelligence. So I think there are some parents are starting to catch on to that. When I started posting about artificial intelligence and asking, here's an AI guide that I created for parents. The the funny the funny thing is almost all of the parents who reached out to me were actually from IT careers or IT fields. Right? It was people who were actually in tech asking me, Mark, can I have that AI 101 guide? Which to be honest, I think between the three of us, it's very very simple guide, honestly. Very very basic guide. But I was surprised that it was actually technologists, parents who were in IT who were asking about it, and they all consistently said to me, Mark, this is so useful. Can I share it? Can I share it to my family? One even said to me, can I share this to my leadership team? Oh, so that was very interesting. So that if the technology's parents are actually the ones asking, what more those parents who are not part of an IT career, right? I wonder what do they know, and do they know that their child is actually using some form of artificial intelligence, whether that's ChatGPT or Google Gemini, or worst case, there's a lot of horror stories of using ChatGPT as your personal psychiatrist, or you can have a virtual girlfriend. No, so you underestimated the impact of social media, uh, to the point that it's too late. Try to get ahead of the impact of that with kids, and with society. So I think trying to stay ahead now, while it's still, well, becoming mainstream, uh to try to get ahead of understanding again, what is AI, what value does it bring, how can it make your life more productive, but what are its limitations and what are the risks.
Key takeaway from what you said, Mark, that we already lost the battle in social media. It Everybody just kind of were frogs in boiling water when it came to social media, lightly taking it that it's just another website where people post their thoughts. Who would have thought that it would be, it is now social media in the Philippines is now mainstream media. YouTube is already 80%, I think 80% penetration in the Philippines, and it is also already the number one channel where people get their information and their news alongside with TikTok. Who would have thought that it wasn't GMA versus ABS-CBN, right? It was a silent killer called YouTube that took over mainstream media in the Philippines, and now it's social media. So definitely we don't want to be behind when it comes to artificial intelligence. And it's so sad sometimes that it's not in the mainstream news, or it's a little bit exaggerated in the mainstream news instead of us being excited and educated about this new thing entering our lives called artificial intelligence. Sometimes it's exaggerated to the point of fear mongering. And instead of like trying to figure out how do we make sure that our population, our children, our students, our educators are have this tool in their arsenal, right?
I think,
Yeah.
just to your point, fear mongering and exaggeration, right? I think we need to challenge that there needs to be a certain balance in terms of understanding what artificial intelligence is. Yeah, there needs to be a certain balance because again, if you go one way that hey, you know what, this is all just going to make everything right, and then here on the other end, hey, this is going to cause us to lose all of our jobs and or bring on the end of the world. I think there needs to be a certain we need to take a more calm and balanced approach and view on this latest technology that has landed on all of our laps, right? So
Yeah.
And social media loves that one, right? The extreme either
yes.
Yeah.
opportunity or
Polarize.
extreme
Yeah.
fear,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
love
yeah.
that. That was the reason why Muchi and I put this up is we want like really a balanced approach and also hear it from the people who do the work, right? Like you putting up this and all others people who's working on artificial intelligence. Yeah, like what you said, it's very important to have a balanced approach on this new world.
My next question mark is that there's a global debate about AI replacing teachers. What's your stand on this?
Straight up, easy answer, no, it won't. It cannot replace teachers. I think well on a personal note, I think teaching and learning is a very personal I guess experience to growth, no, especially for kids. And that's why um when the pandemic started to ease up, it was very important that kids started going back to school and really interacting with not just with their classmates but also with educators, no. And I don't think that personal touch and that conversation and that connection can ever be replaced by artificial intelligence, right? I think the mindset should be artificial intelligence should be used to see how we can accelerate or make teachers more productive. It's not intended, I think, it should never be designed to replace teachers because it cannot. That's my personal opinion. But it can be used if designed properly to really empower a teacher to be able to do more with less effort, so that in my mind they can focus on the more important aspects of actually teaching, connecting with the child, communicating with the child, and helping a child really like learn the things that they need to learn, and understanding also how they actually learn. A certain human element needs to be there, and that's not something that can be replaced by artificial intelligence.
AI is more there to support our teachers and to even empower them to give more personalized learning for our students. I never really thought about it that way, in a sense that AI can help teachers teach better. Wasn't there a study that our teachers are so overworked and burnt out that maybe AI is actually a saving grace for them if they could have their own little assistant that will help them reduce their workload and help them actually deliver lessons that are personalized to the students. What design thinking or design principles do you use in order to keep AI safe for kids? Because GUIA is a platform for students, right? And you guys worked with a lot of educators and a lot of people in the educational value chain in order to create this platform.
First of all, we not I wouldn't say it was an intentional effort, but it was designed, I guess, with people who actually really had the best intentions in mind. I think that's a very important first step. And these people are educators and parents, right? Because naturally, parents would care for their child, and of course, and I saw this. I was this experience actually gave me a better appreciation of our teachers because despite despite the challenges of being a teacher in the Philippines, consistently they all had a shared passion for teaching and for their for their students, no? And um having them and asking for their inputs was very important in designing and what were the, I guess, the gates or the fences, that things that we can do or not do. I've had a number of questions from students. Can Gia also teach me, like a virtual tutor? So we veered away from that because we felt that, you know, the having a chatbot in Gia would open up the possibility of hallucination, especially to a child. So that was something that we really intentionally tried to stay away. And then all of the content that we pushed to a child, we made sure that it was actual educators who are making the content. So all of the questions, as I mentioned, these are created and also peer reviewed by uh, educators. So an educator, for example, for math, creates a math question, and another math teacher then peer reviews that. So to make sure that the all of the questions are of quality and meets a certain standard for what they call as item analysis. The final thing is that when we designed the how Gia actually analyzed the data, we try, and I can't share too much details of this because this is intellectual property of Gia. Even before we don't just throw the entire data set into, say, for example, ChatGPT or Claude. We do some back end processing of that data first into some sort of framework that has, of course, been co-designed with actual educators. No? We designed it in a way, in a framework that it's already processed on the GIA end, not through artificial intelligence, but through set frameworks and principles. And that's what we ask a large language model to process and that get insight, and even that insight and that we show on the GIA's user interface that the child sees is also built on a certain framework. Again, co-designed or designed actually by people who are more knowledgeable in education than myself. So there.
Nice.
But
Nice.
I love how you guys think through the ethical aspect, the being responsible aspect of Kia, because Luchi and I talk about this in our previous episode where right now there's a lot of recklessness, I'd say, in the tech company, given all the opportunities that AI is bringing. And this is a perfect example of how you can be responsible on building something. You're really gonna think through the implications. Building a chatbot. Oh wait, hold on. What's the implications, right? Doing this. What's the implications? This is a role model to people on how we can be more ethical, be more responsible in this AI world.
Just to add to that, I think having gatekeepers from the actual industry is also very important, because if you just think as a founder and you're just thinking about the product, there can be a tendency to you know cut corners and stuff. But at least when I engage educators and parents in the decision making process, in the design process, I can always say, if people ask me, is this ethically designed? Well, I had teachers review it. So if it's good with them, and I had parents review it, if it's good with them, then it's probably safe for their child or safe for their student. So
Yeah. I think this is going to be a battle of trust, the AI world.
yeah.
And that's going to be the foundation of everything, with all these issues on AI coming
Mm.
in. And if you build a product that doesn't build trust through ethics and responsible AI, and I think it's going to be really, really challenging. But you guys are off to a good start.
Thanks.
And just to add there, I would actually say, Fush, with that discussion of being reckless, I would say I'm not that reckless, but even when I have a wild idea of like something that I'd want to say sorry for, I'm glad that I have co-founders who are dads and teachers because they're always the guardrail saying, no, we're not gonna do that. So when there's a wild idea, the fact that there are two fathers and two teachers in the co-founding team. So if there is an idea from a marketer millennial, a growth marketer millennial who has an idea that she just wants to say sorry for in the future and just try and be reckless about, there's like four other people saying, nope, we're not going to do that, or we're not going to do that because this is the educational standard. This is, what parents are going to be worried about. So I think that's the difference between having somebody young and having somebody with kind of like that parental perspective in mind in creating an app for kids. So I can't imagine like four millennials doing this because there's definitely like dads, moms, and teachers putting their insight in what this platform will be for their kids.
Basti's going to use GUIA this coming school year to prepare, and all of his classmates are going to hopefully use it. If it does something unethical, what am I going to say to all of my co-parents, right? So,
Yeah.
I never want to get into that situation, or even my
Yeah.
child, right? So,
Yeah. So for those of you, for the parents and the listeners, for those of you who are moms, dads, ates and kuyas, and you want an AI guide for teens, for your kids, like comment down below. Mark will send his PDF guide for parents. And we might also be able to give some free access to GUIA for those who want to try. So GUIA is an AI-powered exam preparation platform. You guys might want to sign up and try for the waitlist. And comment down below. This is just a shameless plug. Shameless plug for GUIA in this podcast.
These are free stuff, guys.
Yeah, free stuff, free guide,
Free learning and free
free
guides.
access, early adopters, My next question is, Mark, if you can paint us a picture, what do you think the future of learning looks like with AI there? Like what in a perfect world scenario, paint us a picture of what you think the world can be with artificial intelligence in the classroom.
if you're talking about artificial intelligence in general, I'm really not too fond about the idea of an AI tutor, because again, as I mentioned, I think the human connection is very, very important. I do believe that it's like outsourcing. That the concept of outsourcing, right? So a company outsources its non-core functions like IT or maybe even finance to a third-party supplier whose core is information technology, right? So that I do that so that the company can then focus on what its core is. So I look at AI in a sort of a similar fashion. If a teacher can delegate or outsource a lot of the administrative stuff to an artificial intelligence platform, and then so that he or she may have more time to do more of the value adding activities of teaching. If Gia can tell the teacher, okay, you are now going to talk to student A, let's say Muchi. Yeah. And here are Muchi's grades, but here is the areas where Muchi needs help the most. And here are some recommendations, right? And then the teacher can then be more present and have more time to really tweak that customized learning for the student. And then the next student that she will uh, look at would be, say, for example, student Simon. And okay, for Simon, the challenge is with Filipino. Uh, and here are the areas, specific areas for Filipino, and this is how Simon adapts to this type of learning, and then the teacher can then customize the experience with that, with student Simon, that's at the teacher level, specifically here in the country, right? I mean, I think we have a huge shortage of teachers. If we can take away a lot of like the admin work and empower teachers with trying to manage their, I don't know, 40, 50 students that he or she, I think, sometimes they have two shifts, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, right? So if we can empower and AI can empower the teacher to be able to give some sort of like very personalized teaching per student, then that can be a very bright future for us. If we can also leverage AI to be able to aggregate and analyze on demand and to be able to provide insight at the school level or even at the national level, right? Be able to say that, hey, you know what? Private schools in Metro Manila, here are the strengths and weaknesses, here are the trends, and be able to customize the curriculum for them. But for this particular region or the public school system in this particular LGU, this is what the data is telling us, and then be able to tweak that experience or that curriculum for their needs, and then be able to do that again in 6 months down the line and measure, right? Did the intervention actually improve? Then I think that would be so powerful for us.
So it's personalized, not just personalized learning, but also personalized teaching, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Mm.
It's not, hindi na siya peanut butter spread.
Hindi na siya participant approach.
Wow. Wouldn't that be a vision to have a real-time view of your entire learning population, right? Which is actually supposed to be the priority of our constitution, to really prioritize the education in our students. So hopefully, Mark, hopefully we get to do that. Hopefully we get to
That's the
change
dream.
that.
That is
Yeah, that's
that
the
is the
dream.
dream.
That's the dream. Okay, sorry. So thanks, Mark, for answering my questions. I'm gonna bring you back to Fush here.
Yeah, before we close, Mark, I wanted to touch this very important segment because a lot of people in our batch, they're raising their kids, like what you said. You're doing a really good job on putting up, trying to educate the dads out there, right? Not just the dads who are in tech, parents who are in tech, right? But also in non-tech. And you also mentioned that your inspiration in GIA is your son, right? Was your son who was one of your inspirations, and I think primarily because you want them to have a better future, right? Being able to pass this exam, be able to learn what he needs
Aim.
to learn. I think, with AI coming in, how do you think we should be raising our kids in this new world shaped by AI? This is $1 million question with a lot of parents.
Great question. So I think I probably can respond in two parts. And the first part we kind of already alluded to it, which is we need to approach artificial intelligence with balance. Right? AI can really like unlock a lot of positives for not just for students, but for us human beings. There's a lot of things that it can do. It can help us become better, more productive, and stuff like that. But we also have to be clear on what are its limitations
Mhm.
and what are the risks involved. And for us here at home, actually, we it's aside from what's happening, I guess, locally with the situation in our country, but we also talk a lot about on the dinner table what's happening outside of that, specifically in tech and specifically around. We had a conversation around social media, for example. We've had that conversation time and again, but the past year it has morphed to what is artificial intelligence, what what can it do, when should you use it, and when you use it, what are the pros and cons? Be careful that, yeah, fine, you're getting a good grade. But then, is it actually preparing you for what actually lies after you graduate? Right? Are you also building the skills? Uh, or you just cheated your way by having ChatGPT write your essay?
Mhm.
I think the other thing is, especially with artificial intelligence, is that acquiring knowledge or knowledge in general is now very, very cheap, right? With a simple prompt, can you give me the background around, say, for example, this war that's happening in another part of the world, and then immediately it can tell you that, right? So knowledge is cheap, but I think what's important to instill in our kids is the ability to discern, right? Discern what artificial intelligence is actually outputting and or giving us, right? And be able to ask the right questions. It's not seeking knowledge actually per se. It's also being able to discern and ask the right questions so that you can then figure out what are the, I guess, what are the right answers. No, so it's critical thinking, it's contextual judgment, and I guess more importantly, it's also empathy.
I love that. I love the critical thinking, the discernment, especially because there's so much information out there. You don't just want to believe in one side. You have to hear the
Me.
other side. You have to keep asking, right? The follow up questions. And it's going to build their critical thinking. That I love that one. I think as a parent, you have to think about the risks as well associated with all these technologies that they're using. The responsibility, I think it's now bigger and more critical as a parent. So I think that's why it's important, like what you were doing, that you're trying to share all of these, educate the parents out there on how to be, on how we can use this technology more ethically and more responsibly.
Something just clicked in my mind when Mark said to have comfortable conversations on the dinner table about artificial intelligence. And I guess that's so important, right? Because if 20 years ago or 30 years ago our parents were telling us stranger danger, like you don't talk to strangers, you don't accept candy from strangers, right? That was what our parents taught me anyways. I think kids should also know like the pros and cons of this new stranger that is welcomed into our house virtually, right? That there is this new stranger apart from who they talk to in the internet and social media, but also this new thing that they talk to every day, and they need to understand what is the personality of the stranger. When is this stranger wrong or right? I think that's so important to introduce this stranger to your kids, to make them understand like when is it right, when is it not right, when should they not rely on this stranger and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think to that point, Butch, the more that you tell a child, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I'm sure we've got something similar.
Do
Right?
it.
Don't do it, don't do it. But then, let me try it and stuff like that.
Try
And then
to, yeah.
let
Let me try to
me,
ask it to write my essay and answer my homework.
yeah, when someone's not looking right, don't do it, don't do it. I think that's I think that's a wrong approach. I think being able to explain why you should do it a certain way is more important. Right? Here are the pros and cons. Here's how you can do it. Here's how you can leverage that. But then, of course, as a parent, if you're not familiar with the technology per se, how can you actually transform the conversation from "don't do it" is to "this
Yeah.
is how you do it," right?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a very tough call. To be honest, as a technologist, and I use artificial intelligence every day, I still don't know a lot about it. I still don't know a lot about it, and then that's why if I am not aware of it, and what more the average, I guess, Filipino mom or dad, no, who
Yeah.
is maybe even does not even know how to use Lazada. So I know a couple of parents who don't even know how to order online, right? So yeah, so
Yeah.
that will take time.
It's a rapidly evolving technology that
Yeah,
that it's hard to catch up. Every day there's a new progress. There's
every
new
day, every
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
definitely. Wow. Well, to the parents who are listening and want to learn more about how to raise your kids when it comes to artificial intelligence, just comment down below. Let us know because Mark is also doing classes and courses in teaching parents and teachers how to better leverage artificial intelligence. So go ahead, guys, ask your questions, engage in the comment sections because G and I look at the comment section all the time. We use it to guide ourselves with what you guys want to listen to in this podcast.
If you missed our previous episode about Mark's courageous journey from corporate life to the startup life, go check it out if you're someone interested in that path. Mark, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank
story,
you so much.
your wisdom, not just as a founder, but also as a dad, as a parent. Our audience needs something around this area. I know we can always pull you back in to share
Of course.
your thoughts. and wishing you all the best and the entire GUIA team.
The same goes with Lumpia Bytes. Always looking forward to each and every episode. All the best to both of you, and thank you so much. It's a very humbling experience to be invited to this platform. So thank you so much.
Same here, same here. Thanks, Mark.
Thank
All right.
you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Mark.
guys. Thanks for watching.